response to the Senate and House budget targets?
Yeah.
Than yours, or, what
Yeah,
do you like,
no,
what don't you like?
good. First of all, glad they're out there. I think the timing is right, not that different than other years. I think the targets out of the House should be a really encouraging thing, bipartisan targets coming together. There's some differences, obviously, but I think the one thing is that there was an acknowledgement on the structural issues that have existed for quite some time, especially around those disability waivers. Those are acknowledged. Now, I'm going to make the case that I don't think they went enough of what they did, but that's the starting point. So a lot of good commonality. I was mentioning in there the public safety budget was smaller than what I had put in, but their pension sides were bigger. So look, I think for Minnesotans, the system is working the way it's supposed to. They told me they would get them out before April. They did. We've been meeting for a couple hours every couple days. That pace will continue on, and I think this bodes really well for us getting a working budget, making sure we're funding the things Minnesotans care about, but also addressing those over-the-horizon structural issues.
Governor, have you been surprised at the pushback on the return to the office policy you announced?
Oh, no, not necessarily. Look, I have been a strong supporter of our state workforce. I'm proud of the contracts we got them. I think the move towards a hybrid, that was necessitated by COVID and then the return back, probably not. I think anything in your life that kind of moves you out of the routine, you're going to get somewhat of a response. But it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing for both the state workforce. And in this mood where we're at with the federal government continuing to cut and things, I'm just looking a little bit over the horizon how to do the best I can to protect a workforce that's going to be continuously under threat.
On the trans issue, with transgender members of the National Guard, how are you dealing with that? Is there any?
Yeah, it's in the courts right now. Push it back. I've made it very clear on that. There's a set of standards that you have to adhere to. We're an all-volunteer force. We've got Americans that raised their hand, volunteered, serving honorably, getting excellent and effective performance reviews. It doesn't seem right to me that we shouldn't allow them to serve. We're obviously following what the courts say at this point in time. It's a pause, and we do have troops that identify as transgender in the Minnesota National Guard, and they've served us well.
Are you being threatened at all with budget cuts from the federal government for any other trans policies in Minnesota?
Well, I don't think openly, but I take a little bit of offense where I see things that, starting out with Lutheran Social Services and the Association of Geographers seems to be a little bit personal on things, but we're not seeing anything specifically on that, not like Maine where it was. But I stand in that position that we need to allow these folks to be able to serve, and the courts have that temporary restraining order on having them out.
Have you been able to get any additional information on the U of M grad student who's been detained?
No. The day that it happened, I was able to call, and I did speak with Secretary Noem on that, and she was helping and said she would get the information. I explained the situation as I knew it because I had spoken earlier with President Cunningham. Deep concerns here that no matter what the situation was in this country, everyone has due process rights, and our concern is were those due process rights being followed. First and foremost, the safety of the student, where they're at, even being able to contact. We have not had follow-up on that since late Friday night, so as soon as we do, we'll pass it on.
How's your March Madness bracket look?
Oh my God, it looks so good. I'm at 99.7. I'm in the top 50,000. I got everybody out there, so I'm a University of Houston guy, so thanks for asking. Yeah, there you see that?
Is that your number one for the
Yes,
win? Yeah.
yes. So yeah, I'm really in it, and yeah, it's kind of exciting, I guess, as a bit of a distraction for things. Anything else?
Governor, it's been making the rounds on social media this weekend again. Some of the comments you made at some of the rallies about a shadow government.
Yeah.
Explain that to us.
Yeah, this idea is it's nothing new, and you said you see it in Europe, that the government that's in place, and you see it the Europeans, they have an opposition, a loyal opposition minister in each of these positions. So when, for example, Secretary Duffy in Transportation wants to build roads to make sure we have more babies, somebody needs to say that's insanity. That's not how transportation works. You shouldn't be doing it. And what that means is you've got somebody up and the press goes to their press conference and then goes to the other press conference. I think we've left a void. I learned this during the campaign, that if you don't respond to some of these things, it gets stuck out there and people don't hear it. And what I found is it's not people functioning out of malice. Sometimes I think it's just the absence of information, the ignorance of not hearing the other side. So I'm making the case that's what that looks like. It's nothing like sinister here. This is how European governments have functioned a long time. And I think right now in this new media environment, it makes sense that we should be responding.
What's your reaction to Elon Musk's actions in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race?
It's outrageous. It's outrageous. That's going to be a $100 million race. Supreme Court races are nonpartisan in Minnesota, and they range about $70,000. This is an assault on the democracy. This is the richest man in the world giving away $1 million if you'll vote for his person on a Supreme Court race. And that Supreme Court justice isn't there to rule for law. He said he's there to support Donald Trump's agenda and all the way. I don't, look, I got to be honest with you, and you call me on this every time. If the Democrats were doing this, I would call them out like nobody's business. And the idea of him being over there, you know, holding these rallies, trying to rally the troops, and this is going to be a very close race. I think Judge Crawford will win this thing by 1 or 2 points, but I don't underestimate that $14 million by the richest man in the world. It's an outrageous affront on the democracy, and I'm calling him out on it.
All right.
Thank you all. Grateful.
everyone.
Go Cougs. Hey, I went down and ate at Frenchie's. You've been to Frenchie's.